Hi, this is Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, the President, Founder, and Chief Listening Officer here at our network at USA Global TV and Radio. Thank you so much for your loyalty. Thank you so much to all of our guests, to our team members, to our sponsors, and to all of our elevated listeners. Here at USA Global TV and Radio, we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. We celebrate all of our team members, all of our guests, and all of our sponsors from around the world who come and lead their lives with their hearts to help other people walk into their greatness. If you'd like to be a guest on any of our shows, please go over to our website, usaglobaltv.com, and book your session. Please contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com and subscribe to our channel. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday or happy Saturday, wherever it is you are in the world. Thank you for joining us here on USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is Authentic Achievements. Our topic is I have my doubts. Exploring this topic with me is the star of our show. We're thrilled to welcome her back. It's KIM-ADELE Randall joining us from Chile, London. Hello.
Hey, Dr. Jacalyn, lovely to see you.
Thank you. Lovely to see you as well. How have you been?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. I think we're getting to this place where the nights are getting a little bit lighter, and that always makes you feel good, doesn't it? Like spring's just around the corner, which never fails to fill me with smiles, albeit, and I love the title of the show, I have my doubts. There have been days recently where I have my doubts that spring's ever going to come. It's been that cold.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that. Here in Florida, and I'm from the Northeast, I forget that it's cold until I talk to my friends around the world. They're like, we are freezing here. They've got blankets on doing the show. They've got big furry slippers on. So I know what you're saying. Yesterday, I looked at the sun when the sun was setting, and it seemed like it was maybe 5 or 10 minutes later than before. And I thought, wow, this is great. I love it.
It's funny though, isn't it? It always reminds me of a time when we were actually in deep snow at the time, and my ex-husband was complaining about how cold it was. But unfortunately, he was complaining to one of his friends who's in Canada, who kind of came round with it's minus 27 over here. Suck it up, princess. I don't think it helped that I thought it was hilarious to say suck it up, princess, to him pretty much every time he did anything after that.
I love it. It is interesting, before we get into our topic, it is interesting that some people spend most of their life in a place where they were born. It's freezing cold. I mean, really cold, like what you're talking about, and they don't leave because they're just used to it. And I guess their blood, their body, their mindset is just, okay, this is what we have. I'm going to deal with it and accept this is part of my life.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Because when I was growing up, in England, you definitely had all 4 seasons, which I loved. So there was a real clear demarcation of winter was winter, spring was spring, and the weather would be according. So you had really, really cold winters, like snow, etc. And then warm, so I'm caveating that because an English summer's never been that warm. But it was lovely. Whereas I think, in recent years, they've all blended a little bit. So you can kind of like be freezing cold in September and then have a warm day in January. And I think it's thrown us all a little bit out of kilter.
I definitely would agree with you, KIM-ADELE, because it seems like the distinct seasons, wherever you are, that they've kind of blended to what you're saying. And there's definitely something going on in the world with climate change. I mean, it's really hard to just stand there like some people are saying, no, there's nothing, because you can just look around and see the impact of it in so many places. And as I mentioned before, when I'm in New Jersey for the summer, we had birds that have, flocks and flocks of birds, and the number of birds that are there is much less. The water level is different. The wetlands are not as pronounced as they used to be. The beaches are eroding, and we just have to look at what we can do to change our behavior.
Yes, it's so true. I was talking to a fascinating lady yesterday who hopefully is going to come on and be one of our guests. And she was talking about what we can do to live with more of a conscious green heart, and that is not about what I loved about when she was chatting about it was not about it becoming a new rule book and saying we've got to be 100% green all of the time, because that's not going to work for everybody, but just to take conscious moments, and when we have an opportunity to think green, that we think about it. She had, some days she might have had a bottle of water. She says, as long as I don't do all of the time, then it's putting life in balance, but it's being much more consciously aware of our choices, I think.
I think so, exactly. And again, it's time, I believe, for each of us to do what we can instead of waiting for somebody else to come and fix everything, because we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. And for someone like you who has a child, we have to think about the younger people and the next generations coming after us. It's not just about us.
Yeah. It's true, because it's what we're leaving for them, isn't it? It's what life we're creating. Because I think about all the things that I got passed on to me. Those I guess family sayings or the little traditions. I remember an aunt of mine was adamant that winter wasn't over until the snowdrops had been covered twice. And that used to be true, much as it used to frustrate us that she was right. She'd be like, we'd get to sort of end of February and we're like, snow's over now. And she went, we've not had 2 coverings of the snowdrops. And sure as anything, there'd be another snowstorm, but that's not there anymore. And you kind of look at those and think, so it's the world that we live in that we're losing the ability to pass on to our children. But it's a lot of those moments from our generations that we're passing down that are going with it, I think.
Yes, definitely. And I'm not really sure, but is today Groundhog Day?
I think it might be.
So I don't have any information about it, but if anyone knows anything about what we should expect, I think I saw something on social media. Sometimes I'm up in the middle of the night scrolling, which is a horrible thing to do. And I was like, I don't know. And then I forgot about it. But anyway, let's move on to our topic today, which we can take really anywhere. The topic is, I have my doubts. So when you think about that, you mentioned that recently you had some doubts about things. Are you someone who typically will allow yourself to second guess yourself?
Oh, I'm dreadful for it, and I think we all are. We all have that ability to two second guess ourselves, and unfortunately, we very often err on the side of the negative. So, as I talked in my TEDx last year, the piece for me that I try and remember is that everything that I'm fearful of, I've had to imagine. It hasn't happened yet, so I've made it up, I've created it, I've imagined it. And the same is true of everything that I'm hopeful for. So they were both created by me. They were both created by the same brain. They're therefore both equally likely to happen. And therefore, I try my best in those moments to focus on what I want. So to look at, and you can't stop yourself from having that conversation of something that you don't want. You can't go, no, I'm not thinking that, because the brain doesn't allow us to do that. But what I find that I can do is I can accept it. I can go, okay, so we're thinking on a negative. What would I like to happen instead? What would that make me feel like? How would I celebrate if that happened? So now I'm spending a lot more time thinking about something that I do want. And then somebody also taught me laughter therapy. It sounds really weird, but they said, right, when you really, really, you've got something, you've got yourself in a bit of a doom loop, and you're really doubting yourself, you have to stand in a room and laugh as loud as you can, just for 30 seconds, but really laugh. Belly laugh as much as you can, and then ask yourself again about the thing that you've got doubts about. And it's really hard, because you've triggered a different part of your brain. It's really hard to go back into the same level of doubt, because now it just looks silly. It's a bit like that moment in Harry Potter, and forgive me, I can't remember which of them it was. That's what I was trying to reflect on, where they had the wardrobe, and somebody the biggest thing you were fearful of would be in the wardrobe, and you had to think of the thing that made you laugh the most. So when it came out, that's what you had to think of. And I think Professor Snape ended up being dressed as a granny or something. But it was that whole trick around actually turn your fear into laughter, and suddenly it dissipates.
You know, and as you're saying that, I'm imagining like just going outside or in a garage or a bit, you go, and you're just doing that. I feel better. I feel like lighter.
Yeah,
But yeah,
a strange thing. I mean, once you get over that momentary, what if somebody sees me? And goes, that weirdo is laughing on her own.
but they might start laughing too. You never know.
That's it, but it doesn't. We've done it in team events before now. Like, it just said, let's just have 5 minutes. Let's just see if we can really laugh, like really laugh. And I do it with Scarlett sometimes the other way, when she's like, Mummy, I'm really grumpy, and she's like got a little bit of a grump on her face, and I'm like, oh, you darling, that must be awful, but show me really grumpy. And she's kind of like, look, so I'm like, no, if we're going to do grumpy, let's be really, really grumpy. Come on, give me your best grumpy face. And she kind of starts, and she starts trying to do it. And I'm like, no, come on, you're really good grumpy face. It's in there. You know it's in there. At which point she's in stitches. It's like she like starts giggling as if I've been tickling her or something. And then once we've got through that, it's like, okay, let's talk about what was concerning you. But all of a sudden, it's less of she's lighter. It's less of a concern because we've got through the emotion that comes with it. And I think that's the challenge when we're in doubt, is the doubt is linked to emotions that we don't want to feel. And therefore, we're now stuck with those emotions and we can't see past them. So we can't see any resolution. So if we can find a way to jolt ourselves into a different emotional state, then we can view the problem from a different perspective. And very often we can find a solution that works.
As always, another brilliant comment from you. Thank you. And you said the word tickle, and I actually was kind of laughing to myself. I can't remember the last time I was tickled, but if you think about it, even though you don't want to laugh, you just have to. I remember being just so mad at, stop it, leave me alone. I don't want to laugh. I want to be in my mood. But you said earlier when we started the show that we actually have a choice of which way we're going to proceed with our emotions. And when you look at it like that, why not choose the high road? Why not choose the positivity? There's something about wanting to be dead fast or steadfast, I should say, in our bad mood. I'm in a bad mood right now. I'm going to be right. And people try to help you get out. You're like, yeah, exactly. Why do we do that?
I don't know. But I think so I'm reading a book at the moment because, as you know, Scarlett's been having some challenges, and it's called The Whole Brain Child. A fascinating book full of really helpful, actionable things that you can do to engage with your child. But one of the things that they've got in there, and I love it, it's kind of a wheel of emotion. So you draw these 3 circles and you put yourself in the center, or the child is in the center. And then round the outer edge of the 3rd circle, you put the thing that's making them anxious or nervous. So it could be a test I've got at school tomorrow, or someone was mean to me in class, or I don't want to go to swimming because I'm going to a different pool, whatever it is that they're putting in. But then what you ask them to do is think of 3 things that they love to do, 3 things that they really enjoy. And you put those around the circle as well. So what you're not doing is you're not tricking the brain by saying, I'm ignoring the thing I'm fearful of. It's on the wheel. But you've now got 3 things that you love to do. And you go, which one should we focus on? Which one do we really want to think about right now? So funnily enough, we don't pick the one that makes us miserable. We go, oh, I want this one over here where I'm playing on the park and I've got a party dress on, and I'm like, okay, talk to me about that. So, what dress is it? What's your hair like? How are you feeling? What are you doing? What are you saying? So now we're having a conversation over here, and we're less fearful. So we've made that emotional shift that now allows us to go back and look at factually what's causing us a problem with the thing that was making us nervous, versus emotionally what was causing us a problem.
Yeah, again, I applaud you. Always coming up with these really powerful, thought-provoking comments. And something that occurred to me earlier in the week is how we can be on a really productive, creative path, and something happens in our day that we had no idea was coming or didn't expect, or a comment or whatever it might be, and all of a sudden, boom, we're totally derailed. It's like, wait, we were in our glory just a little while ago, and now we are doubting ourselves and we are falling into this pit. And when that happens to me, because it's being sidetracked or
Yeah.
just being distracted, I'll go for a walk. And as soon as I go outside, because I'm in the dark all the time here in the studio, I go outside and I look and I go, oh my gosh, look at the beautiful sky, look at the birds, look at the trees. But it doesn't matter where you are. You might be in an environment where it's beautiful and sunny too, but inside you're in a state of panic because something that you didn't expect happened. And you were talking about this a little bit ago, is we worry about things that will never happen to us, and the things that do happen we couldn't have even expected. So why do we spend so much time worrying these things? It's going to find, what's the expression, trouble's going to find you.
Yeah, it's so true. I love that, because we waste all this time. And also, have you ever had a conversation that you know you've got to have, and you put it off, and you put it off, and you put it off, and you spend days driving yourself mad with how bad it's going to go, with kind of like, your summary in your head of like, it's going to be awful, they're going to do this is going to happen, here's all the outcomes, none of them are going to be positive, it's going to be an utter disaster. And then the minute you do it, it's not as bad as you thought, and you think, right, if I'd have just done it, how many hours of misery I would have saved myself, because I had to do it anyway. And it is never as bad as we think it is. And what you give yourself back is the gift of not wasting all that time, energy, and effort in misery, because it is miserable when you're sitting there doing it. And I think it's one of the things that I've learned to do, because I used to be really bad at it. I would, I'd kind of put hundreds of things on my to-do list, mainly because I didn't want to get to the 2 or 3 things that I knew needed to be done. So then I'd reward myself, because I'd get to the end of the day and I'd ticked a lot of things off that to-do list. None of the ones that actually really needed to be done, but they were the ones that were perhaps more complicated, or they were more difficult, or they were more emotionally charged. Whereas now what I do is, the only thing that's allowed to go on my to-do list is, there's only ever 3 things on it, and they have to be the 3 most challenging things that need to get done. And I'm not allowed to do anything else until I've done those. And then when I've done those 3, I can reward myself with whatever else I want to do for the day. I found myself living in much more joy since I did that, because I'm still doing the same amount of difficult things, but I'm giving myself back days and days worth of wasted time trying to avoid them.
Oh, hi, Pudding.
Sorry, that's Pudding.
Hi, Pudding. Good to see you. We'll have you on the show today.
Sorry.
Hello, Pudding. How are you, sweetheart?
Love to make an appearance, doesn't he?
Of course. Why not? We had a dog and cat on yesterday on another show. They're part of the family. They get to say what they have to say. Yes. Everything you're saying is resonating with me. And I feel like that list that you talked about with the things that you were all the way at the bottom, we give ourselves a crutch and we just lean on that crutch. This actually happened to me 2 days ago. I talk all the time about my workout. I go to Solid Core, not a paid spokesperson, but I have weightlifting gloves. I always have my gloves, because sometimes your hands sweat. I'm hauling a lot of weight, whatever it might be. And I got to the parking lot and I realized I didn't have the gloves. And I was literally, oh, what am I going to do? Like, I was in a complete state of panic. And I'm thinking, I don't have time to turn around. So I had a little towel with me, and I thought, well, maybe I could use this. Anyway, a woman came over to me and she said, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you're here. I told my husband about how strong you are, and I'm going to be next to you today. And I was like, this is what I said to her. Instead of like, oh, thank you, I said, but I don't have my gloves today. I don't have my gloves. I'm not going to be as strong. Like, and as soon as I said it, I was just thinking, you sound like an idiot. And she said, oh, do the gloves make a difference? as though now I'm thinking I'm not really strong. The gloves are strong. It's not. So I said,
Not
well,
me.
I'm not really sure, but I recommend getting them, because if your hands start to sweat at all, and we're holding ourselves up on these handles. And so anyway, I just stopped talking and I said, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So I went back to the bench, the machine, and I just said, well, it's in your minds. We're going to see what's going on. And you know what? I ended up being just as strong, if not stronger,
Yeah.
without the gloves. But yet in my mind, I'm not strong without gloves.
What I love about that is, one, that's what we do, isn't it? Something derails us and all of a sudden it's now in control. It's driving that car and we're just going with it. It's like la 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 la. No idea where we're heading. And everything else just goes out of it. But we then make it mean something so plausible. So we tell ourselves, well, it's not me, it's the gloves. Give the gloves to somebody else and they're going to be strong. I'm not going to be weak. As if I don't know, Clark Kent and Superman or something. And you're like, that's not likely. But what I loved is that you actually pushed through that. You're like, well, we're going to have to give it a go. And funnily enough, you were just as strong without the gloves, because if you did give those gloves to somebody else, say you gave them to me, I promise I will not be that strong in them because it's not one of my core strengths. But it's funny how we almost have to distance ourselves from anything that we are good at, and make it as something else. One of my friends over here, and I'll try and make it translate, because you don't have a shop like that over in America. But say it was a thrift shop. She calls it the thrift shop brush off. So somebody gives us a compliment, somebody tells us something, and immediately our mind needs to brush it away. So it's like somebody says, oh, you look lovely today. And you go, this? Oh, it's just a fiver from the thrift shop. Or you go, oh, I'm not strong. It was the gloves, and the gloves aren't here today. So I'm now going to be a real failure. Instead of just going, thank you, and absorbing it. But we can't seem to always do that, can we? Because our brain starts to trick into the, what if it's not me? What if, back to that, I have my doubts. What if it was a fluke? What if I was just lucky? What if I can't repeat the same success? And that's why we get things like lucky socks and things like that. People, I can't do that because I haven't got my lucky socks on. And you're like, but what made them lucky? Because on the day that you were lucky, you didn't know those socks were the things that were going to make you lucky. So what is it that we can take out of the object and recreate emotionally for us to reconnect with?
Absolutely. I'm tracking with everything you're saying. It reminds me of imposter syndrome. And I know you've spoken about this before. It's as though something else has come into our body or mind and taken over, like you said, the car driving by itself. And I have done what you just spoke about so many times. This dress is, I look so fat in this dress. I don't even know why I'm wearing it. I need to go. And the person's like, okay, I just was giving you a compliment, and now I'm getting to hear all of these other things that. And last week, I think it was, on The Power of Etiquette Matters, right after this show, Philip Sykes, who is the principal of the British School of Excellence, we were discussing this subject about the thank you. And I always feel if someone gives me a compliment, I have to put myself down, and then I immediately have to compliment them on something, because how selfish of me to receive a compliment and not give one in return. And my recollection of what he said was that you say thank you, and that's it. You don't need to say anything else. But it's that silence, that pregnant pause. What are we going to do with it?
It's so true. Somebody shared with me once, and it really has helped me. They said, imagine every time somebody gives you a compliment, imagine what they've just done is hand you the most precious, delicate glass ornament. So you've got it in your hand. The minute you brush it off, what you basically do is you open your hands and you let that ornament go. You would never do that. If somebody gave you a precious gift, you would never stand in front of them and just let it go and smash on the floor. So now when people give me a compliment, I try really hard to go thank you, and then run the rest of the dialogue in my head, because it still comes. I I still have the, was only a fiver, or I still have the, oh no, not really, I look really fat today. I'm not, let me tell you all the things I've not done yet that you might not have noticed, but I'll point them out to you so that you realize I'm pretty hopeless. But I'm trying really hard to keep that dialogue internally, because then what happens is the person that gave you the gift of the compliment gets to feel good about the gift they gave. And I didn't realize that inadvertently, when we're rushing off to brush it away, we're making them feel like their gift isn't worthy. And that isn't what we're trying to do, but it is the impact that we have when we brush it off. And because we'd never want to do that to somebody, we'd never want to make somebody feel like the gift they gave us isn't worthy. It's a great way of reframing it so that you can get to a place where you go, thank you. Thank you, Pudding, for deciding.
Thank you. Like Pudding agrees for sure. I love when animals are part of the show. Why not? They're part of the family, and they have a right to be here and say what they have to say. You know, what you were just saying, Kim-ADELE, reminded me also about the dating world. And I think to myself, how many times, and I haven't had a date in years, but how many times a guy might be, hey, I'm the best there is, and, you know, you should like me, or this is wrong with me, that's wrong with me. And I was always attracted to the ones who were really confident. It turns out in most cases, they were actually very insecure, putting on imposter syndrome. But the ones who are really insecure, sometimes the ones who appear to be very insecure could also be very authentic and just vulnerable. And I know, having been like that myself, telling people, well, I have ulcerative colitis, I have facial eczema, because I wanted to see if they would stick around during the tough times. So I put it out there right away. Now, on one of our shows, The Listening Mentor with Caroline Hewitt, she's a Harley Street stress expert, we had a conversation about this, and I think we left it with, you don't have to put out everything that's you feel is wrong with you on a first date. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like that's, you know, this is having my doubts. That maybe is disingenuous, because if you don't let somebody know, if you have an autoimmune disease, for example, or you have some kind of issue and you don't share that with someone, and then you get into the relationship and they're like, oh, you should have told me about this, because this is not something I'm gonna. You could have found out right away that that person wasn't going to be there for the tough time. So I have my doubts. I'm not really sure which way is the best way to go. What do you think?
Oh, I love it, and I don't know. I have my doubts too, because I'm possibly an oversharer. You know, it's like, just to point out all of the things that are wrong with me, just so you know.
Here's the list.
Anything I've missed, add it to it. It's fine. You know, I'm constantly learning. I'm good at that. But because I don't want people to think that I've been disingenuous. But then I think, I guess, and somebody shared this with me, and I've not thought of it from this point of view. They said most people don't go in and give a list of everything that is wrong with them. So anybody that you meet that you've just given the overwhelming list of, like, you know, I'm basically horrendous, don't spend any time with me, is going to think, wow, what else are they not telling me? Because everybody keeps something back. And I was like, I'd never thought of that. So, you know, I'm out there bearing my soul, going, you know, I've got all of these things that are wrong. And they're probably thinking that I'm not telling them everything. So that could make you significantly worse. I think all we can really do is go with what feels right. I think sometimes we think there's got to be a right and wrong way of doing things. And I think sometimes you've just got to go with what feels right in the moment. And as long as in the moment it felt like the right thing to do, and at any point later on, if it didn't feel like the right thing to do, you apologize. Then there's probably no better way we can be.
Yes, and I'd like to take it to another example and see what your thoughts are. If you're going for a job interview, you're sitting across from that person, you go, I just want to let you know, I've been fired from every job I ever had. I have this problem, I have that. They'll be like, hello, can you please get this person out of my office? Now, what if you were to take the fact, because you're going to have a resume that's going to show your jobs. What if you were to take that situation and turn it around about what you learned from the opportunities or experience? So instead of hiding certain things, what's the value that you gained from having that opportunity, for example? So once again, I have my doubts. I don't know.
Yeah, I love that because it's true. It's not the mistake that defines us. It's what we do with the mistake. So actually, as long as we learn something from it, as long as we're able to go, do you know, actually, I used to be really pig-headed and I wouldn't really listen and I thought I knew best. And as a result of that, unfortunately, I clashed with a number of employers and it ended up having to move around a lot. What I learned was that I needed to have a better internal perspective. So I've done lots of work on changing how I view things, being able to be a much better listener and recognizing that I play my best game as part of a team rather than trying to always be the star. What that now allows me to do for companies that I work with is really add value to that team, really bring out the strengths within that person. So turning those negatives into what you've learned from it is great, because actually what that allows the future employer to do is go, I saw what steps they took. I've seen what approach it is that they're looking to do. And is that something that sounds feasible for the organization? And I think sometimes being honest, I always think I would do authentic achievements is my brand. But I always think, being honest and authentic is a great way forward. I remember many years ago being sat in a final interview for a pretty big job. It was a UK head of position, and the chief people officer sat in front of me and said, if you had to sum yourself up in a word, what would it be? And I remember looking at them and saying loud, and they looked horrified and looked back at me and went, sorry, loud? And I was like, mm-hmm. And they went, that's the word you're going for? And I said, well, you've known me for what, 55 minutes? And they were like, yeah. I said, do you think I'm loud? And they were like, well, yeah, I guess. I said, great. In that case, it's self-aware and it's honest. I'll stick with it. And she said to me afterwards, she said, that was one of the reasons you got the job. She said, I've been asked that question for 15 years, and you were the first person that hasn't said something like, I'm self-motivated, I'm results-driven, I'm inspiring, I'm, all of these things. She said, you were just blunt. It's like, but you may as well know what you're hiring. I am quite loud. This is a very corporate job. If you don't think my loudness is going to gel well culturally, I'd rather you know now before I leave the job I've got than know afterwards when it's too late for both of us, and it makes it an awkward conversation. So I think sometimes finding that way to change the narrative. I was talking with a client, and and part of their narrative was I didn't go to these universities. And I was like, but that was 25 years ago, and you've got amazing experience now, but you're still bringing that part up. What you need to do is turn that into what's the positive that came out of that. The positive that came out of it is because you didn't go to one of those universities, you've become a lifelong learner, and you invest time, energy, and money in continually improving, developing, learning, bringing in new skills. And that has been what's allowed you to be so successful and be hired by these amazing organizations around the world who seek you out for your experience. That is what happens. And he was like, yeah, it is. I was like, but you dismiss it all with, I didn't go to the right university. So we have to think very carefully about how we are articulating ourselves to ensure that we're not inadvertently, one, overselling, or two, which I see more often, underselling what it is that we can do.
So many incredible points there. I want to just touch on your brand, Authentic Achievements. What about an authentic achievement, actually accepting ourselves for who we are and taking off the mask and pretending to be someone else because we think that's what people want? I know for me, I went to Penn State, undergraduate and graduate, and I have had several people in my life, not anymore, but through the years say, it's really a shame you didn't go to University of Pennsylvania because that's the other Penn, like the
Yeah.
only Penn. And I would just look and think, no, I didn't go to Penn. I went to Penn State. What's wrong with that? But in their minds, I wasn't good enough because I didn't go to the Ivy League school. And that starts to settle in. And then as I got older, I thought, you know what? I went to college. I have a master's and I have a doctorate. If you don't like it, who cares? This is my journey. This is what I'm doing. But when we're younger, we get so bogged down with taking whatever our authentic achievement is and dismissing it because it's not what someone else thinks it should be.
Absolutely. And our achievement has to be ours. And it took me a long time to get comfortable with who I am. And that won't be right for everybody. And that's okay as well. I tried desperately to be everybody's cup of tea. I'm a British person. We could argue about how we take our tea as much as we could about politics and religion. I mean, we're just never going to agree on that. And so I was never going to be everybody's cup of tea. And that was really hard because you just tried harder and harder and harder. And I lost myself in the process. I couldn't see any value that I brought anywhere. And I had to do a lot of work to get back to that. And now I look at it and go, the things I'm proud of, you might not be proud of them. Yeah, some days I'm proud if I adult appropriately for 12 hours, and that may not feel like a huge achievement for anybody else, but on those days, that is success, and I'll take that. But on other days, it'll be something different. And yeah, I spent lots of years in corporate life, and I didn't go to university. I don't have a degree. I do have an MVQ in hairdressing, which, funny enough, was never that important to anybody in my corporate career. And I worried about that for years until I realized that actually it's about what we learn and what we bring. And what we learn and what we bring don't always come from going to school or to university. They come from the experiences we have in life, from how present we are in the moment, and from how willing we are to do that lessons learned. I do a personal lessons learned every day. So what went well, what didn't go so well, why didn't it go so well, what did I learn about that, what could I perhaps do differently faced with the same situation next time, because that allows me to finish whatever the negative thing was, and now find a way that means I'm not going to be scared of it happening again, because I already know what I'll do differently next time. In the same way that we would do with big projects and big organizations. I think if we can start small, and there's a great term that's around that I got asked to write an article on this week, and it's the first time I'd heard of it. We've heard of quiet quitting, but there's a new one, which is quiet thriving. And it's about doing the small steps that allow you to personally thrive, whether that's showing appreciation to yourself for achieving a small goal, whether it's taking an extra break, whether it's going and spending some time with people that bring you joy. But putting those parts into our day allow us to build the resilience and the mental bandwidth to be able to overcome the challenges. And as I often say to people, because I love an analogy, challenge like opportunity are just the same thing in a different outfit, a little bit like a squirrel is a rat with a better fur coat.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm just having that imagery in my mind. Yeah, I can see it. Absolutely. So when we think about I have my doubts and we try to summarize for our audience, what would you say?
Oh, I think we're always going to have them. And I think it's good that we have them, because if not, we might have lost touch with reality, because we are perfectly imperfect. But I think we have to. So for me, what I always do is I look at it and go, if this was Scarlett, so Scarlett is my North Star. She's the most important person in my world. If this was Scarlett, what advice would I give her? And then I make myself take that advice, because and it works for us with anybody else. If somebody's telling us something, very often when they're telling us their doubts, our immediate thing is, oh no, but you'd be fine, you're great at this, because we can see in people things that they can't see in themselves. What we have to realize is that's also true of us. What we don't see in ourselves, what other people see in us, that's our blind spot. But when we look at what we're doubtful of and go to give the feedback to someone we care about, we see past those blind spots.
That is a great way to close out the show. Thank you. And I think Pudding agrees as well. I heard it. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm serious. I love animals.
Being here today, haven't you?
Pudding, what do you think?
I think he has his doubts that he's going to get another walk, don't you?
Oh, what a sweetheart. How old is Pudding?
He's 20 months old, aren't you?
You know, it's interesting, and I'd love to have you share with us. Pudding looks like Pudding has a very shiny coat. Yes. So on one of our shows yesterday, actually, with Red O'Loughlin on Talking Heads, he was discussing toxins, and he referenced a few times about how in the UK there are certain regulations about things going into food and also beauty products. So what is it that you feed Pudding so that Pudding has such a beautiful coat?
So I'll be honest, I use a brand where they tailor it to each dog. So you tell it all about the dog, the breed, any of its health challenges and what have you. And then the company creates food specifically for the dog. So it turns up in a bag that's got Pudding written on the front of it.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Which is really cool. And then if you have any challenges, so say for example, they didn't like the food, or they pick up an illness of some kind, then you just let them know that, and they just keep amending it. So it turns up every 4 weeks, I think it is. But you've got an online portal, and you can keep changing it. And it's done by veterinary nutritionists and vets, so that they're really giving thought to trying to make your dog as happy and healthy as they possibly can. Because I as you know, he's my furry child to go alongside my non-furry child, and I know not everybody sees animals in that way. But for me, it is. I got caught out the other day because I was on the phone, we were dealing with something in the bank, and the lady said, "How many children have you got?" And I went, "Oh, one." And then Pudding was in, so was Scarlett. And I went, "That's it, follow your sister." And she was like, "Excuse me?" And I was like, "Yeah." She went, "How many children did you say you got?" And I said, "One." I said, "Oh, sorry, did you just hear me say follow your sister?" And she went, "Yeah." I went, "I was talking to the dog." And she just like, "Yeah, sorry." They think they're brother and sister. I said, "But from a legal point of view, in a banking conversation, I recognise he's a dog, or not actually a child of mine." But I think we just want them to be happy and healthy. Like I guess we want for everybody we love, don't we?
For every living creature, really. And I would love to have you come on the Pet Psychic Show and talk about that, and also bring Pudding. The Pet Psychic Show is actually today. It's at 3 p.m. my time, which would be 8 p.m. your time. So I don't know if that works for you on a Friday or not.
I can make it work. Possibly not today, unfortunately. But yeah, no, let's do it. Pudding, we can get to another TV show.
Yes, Pudding's going to be a star of the show. I love it. Well, Kim-ADELE and Pudding, we have to sign off. We have our next show coming up. So I'm going to spotlight you. Please let people know how they can reach you and who you'd like to contact you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. So you can get in touch with me directly. It's kim@kimadelerandall.com, or you can check us out at kimadelerandall.com or Authentic Achievements. What I really love to do is help people to get out of their own way and go and build the life that they dream of, particularly in business. So business owners that are finding all roads lead to them. It's how we help them to build a scalable and saleable business. So if that's you, please do get in touch. Or if you've got an authentic achievement that you'd like to share, we would love to have you join us here and share it with all our fabulous listeners and viewers.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a beautiful weekend. And I'll be in touch about a few things I want to chat with you about. So,
and you have a lovely weekend too. Take care.
Thanks. Bye. Bye, Pudding. Thank you, everyone, whether you're watching or listening live or on the replay. We really do appreciate you. And we look forward to having you back. Our next show is coming up right after this one, and it is The Power of Etiquette and Manners with Mr. Philip Sykes and the British School of Excellence. So please do join us. We have a full day of broadcasting. If you're new to our channel, we're really thrilled to have you. We have, on average, between 25 and 30 live shows a week, and you can find out more on our website, which is usaglobaltv.com, or on our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV and Radio. Thanks again. We'll see you shortly.